Well, welcome, thank you. We are just pleased and excited to announce to you our 20th anniversary season. I'm super excited about it and can't wait to share more about it. But first, I got to say, Welz, thanks for a great 19th season.
Hey, absolutely, for all of us.
I mean, it was a huge success musically, and just, I don't know, it was just a robust feeling of a stronger return to the concert hall this year. So we're still coming through COVID, but just really pleased with how the whole season went.
And I have two questions, because someone, actually, I have a lot of questions, but someone the other day, when we were at the closing concerts for the Rachmaninoff, I said, so when Eric puts a season together, does he know that it's going to unfold the way the 19th season just completed did? In other words, that there would be these amazing projections for the opening weekend, and then projections again in January, and this and that and the other thing. And I said, well, he's certainly aware of what's happening when, because that also gets to who he engages as singers for certain programs. But I think there is a kind of magic in all of this, right? I mean, you never know until it's done.
Well, there is that element for sure, but a lot of planning goes into a season, of course, in terms of developing the repertoire and creating sort of an arc over the course of a season, and some unifying elements and themes, like, for example, LOVE20 for our 20th anniversary. But yes, every program has its unique demands in terms of the personnel you need to pull it off.
So speak about the Rachmaninoff, if you would, since many people have just experienced it, and either the first live broadcast on the radio for True Concord, or live and in person. So there was some astonishing solo work.
Yeah, for sure. So the piece is, first and foremost, it's a choral piece. I mean, it's it's all about the choir, and I was just really proud of their work on a sophisticated, marathon, 60-minute marathon.
Just the standing.
Yeah.
I mean, for a lot of people, that would have been more than they could take.
But the musical demands as well.
Huge.
It's a sophisticated piece of music, and they just did a heck of a job.
And dynamically all over the map in terms of loud and soft, articulations, the phrasing, the breathing, when to do all of that. I mean, it's huge. And the language. The
language too, the old Slavonic language, which we don't sing every day.
We don't speak it at AJ's. No, I never ordered my pizza in Slavonic.
But the soloists in particular for this work to the Rachmaninoff ask a lot of them, and I've got a lot of comments in particular about the alto solo in movement number 2.
Yeah.
Keeley wrote, so the last time we sang this piece was 2012. I have to just do a reality check when I say that. It's been 11 years. And Keeley did the solos back then as well.
That's amazing.
It's interesting, though, that this time around, she was employing some different technique to really go after that Slavic sound.
Technique, actually, her vocal
production. Technique, yes. So she did a lot of that solo in her chest voice. Although there were times where, of course, she's having to jump into her head voice as well across the range of that solo, but she sang most of it in her chest voice, which brought this deep, rich, Slavic quality to it that's just in keeping with the style of the music.
I kept thinking of 3 singers, actually. So Dolores Zajic, an amazing Verdi mezzo-soprano, whether the Requiem or the operas, and this voluminous, huge sound, and a great actor. Olga Borodina, Russian singer, who also, like Dolores, can sort of do anything. And then, believe it or not, I was thinking about Ethel Merman and Patti LuPone, because those are chest voice singers, right? Yeah. They can do the high stuff when they need to, but they don't have the smoothness necessarily of register change as, what's her name again?
Keeley.
Yeah. I mean, that was what was so remarkable, because she was like 3 guys in one. She was like a baritone, a tenor, and a boy soprano, and the intonation. Yeah. Which could have foiled a lot of singers alone, forgetting the sound. She also you never thought, oh, she's the star of this moment. She was part of the entire fabric of what was going on. But now that I've been with True Concord for a little bit, I could tell that the rest of the ensemble was in awe.
Yeah, and totally supportive of her.
And taking musical cues from her as well as you.
Absolutely. Yes, we were all going with her lead because she's the one that's singing this, and it's something to sing. And you mentioned the register changes that she's doing. I mean, she's doing a ton of work in that short amount of time. The choir's right behind her 100%. But she was driving.
A gentleman in the lobby said, I used to run hurdles. And I thought, where's this going? And he said, she was like running hurdles because you run and then you jump.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the physical manifestation of a runner and a singer with the register changes. It was just, so when you found the artists, the singers, the True Concord vocal ensemble to do the Rachmaninoff Vespers, you were looking for her.
Absolutely.
Very specifically, and I'm sure in our 20th anniversary season, you're thinking the same thing.
Oh yes, and I knew I wanted Keeley to do this again. I wanted Gene to sing the tenor solo because he just stood and delivered.
Incredible.
We needed very low basses for this work. You can't do this music without low basses. We had extra support, for which I'm grateful, from the Tucson Desert Song Festival to go and find those guys, because there are not a lot of them who can sing a low P flat.
Right. Or who have, frankly, the guts to do it.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
in public.
It takes a lot of courage, exactly.
Yeah,
and to do 3 performances and a dress rehearsal and all the rehearsals, it's a lot.
Yeah. I had one of the guys ask if they should do shots of vodka before each performance to make sure they could get those. I said,
Rachmaninoff would have approved.
I said, whatever it takes.
Wonderful.
Every program has its vocal demands. So this year we are going to be performing the St. John Passion.
Yeah.
It's the 300th anniversary of the St. John Passion, and that requires an evangelist, a huge role.
Huge.
And
in any passion, but especially this one, right?
Yes, and so people will remember Brian Giebler's performance from our St. Matthew Passion. He knocked it out of the park. He's the guy that I turn to again for this work.
So tell people watching so the evangelist is telling the story, and so they have to be an actor, don't they? I mean, not that all singers don't, but in this case, it's a very specific kind of thing. Not a lot of artists will take it on.
Yes, the evangelist is the storyteller, and what's curious about it is he's got perhaps the most uninteresting music with which to deliver the story. But what you do with it, and in this case, what Brian can do to it, is he can bring the story alive, even through this minimalist, musical writing of Bach. It's so crucial because it moves the story along, and then of course Bach comments on the story with the wonderful arias and choruses. So we're fortunate to have Brian on our roster and to have him back and singing his role.
So thank you for describing so succinctly the selection of that marvelous alto for the Rachmaninoff just completed, the Vespers, and Brian for the Evangelist, kind of deeper into the 24, 20th anniversary. Let's talk about the opening week.
Yeah, very good. So I'm
October seems like a long way off.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. But it's going to be right around the corner, and I'm very pleased with how we're going to open the season. It's a signature program for us, a program that has been popular over the years. It's folk songs and spirituals. It's the songs of America. These really resonate with our artists.
And can I say?
Yeah. And
of all Americans.
Yes, precisely. I mean, we're celebrating the wonderful diversity that makes our country so great, and it's many traditions of song. And so we'll do African American spirituals, we'll do music of the Hispanic tradition, we'll do folk songs by Stephen Foster, the father of American music. And then we have an incredible piece that just won the Pulitzer Prize in 2022. This work by Raven Chacon. It is entitled Voiceless Mass, which seems like a contradiction in terms, right? I mean, when you think of a mass, you certainly think of voices. This is a voiceless mass. Poignant piece by this man, this Native American composer who has a connection to Arizona. Very deep.
And the Southwest in general.
Yes.
Right.
This piece is all about place and space and the kind of things that we take for granted sometimes. We live in this incredible part of the world here in the desert Southwest, and oftentimes I think we take its beauty for granted, and we definitely take for granted the fact that we've enjoyed the opportunity to own our place in it, and not all peoples at all times have had that opportunity and that right.
And that's a never-ending dialogue in a place like Tucson and in the Southwest in general, and his piece is all about that. In fact, this piece was commissioned by the cathedral and a musical group and a cathedral in Milwaukee for Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving had always given Raven pause as a holiday, but he went for it in this case, and he was very happy that he did. The piece requires a pipe organ, so we're in some alternative venues than we typically do. One of the things that I think is important to point out, and you have shared this with me on many occasions, not in a finger-wagging way, but just to remind me that it's True Concord voices and orchestra.
That's right.
This is an orchestra piece. This is a piece that celebrates the space within it where it is. Every time it's done, whether it's First Congregational Church in Los Angeles or the Milwaukee Cathedral, or they're hunting for a Washington, D.C. location with a good pipe organ, because that's what it requires. Pipe organ basically is the voices.
Yeah.
But the spatial setup is different every place.
Yeah.
And that is a celebration of where you actually are at the time. And not a sense of discomfort, but a sense of actually welcome. This piece is going to welcome you into a venue you may not think of going into otherwise, because the music will do that. That's where he's going with this. This is a guy, and I should point out that an exhibit in one of the beautiful small exhibit spaces, intimate exhibit spaces at the Tucson Museum of Contemporary Art has just opened of his work, and it'll be up through the time that we're doing these performances, which we're very excited about that collaboration and partnership. His scores are beautiful. Yeah. How he notates is an artwork. His wife is a very famous curator of exhibits all around the world. They have a lot of different things going on, and the fact that this is a Southwest premiere, a prize winner, and there's another prize winner on the same program, and a composer that has not been yet celebrated in Tucson this way, is something you've been doing for a long time. This is about 20 years of True Concord.
It is, and what I like about it is that really it is so spatially oriented. So as an audience member, you'll be sitting at Grace St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Tucson, or Lutheran Church of the Risen Savior in Green Valley, and you will be surrounded by the instruments. So they won't all be on stage. There'll be a few on stage, but they will be placed around the entire space. And so you're enveloped by this sound, and it creates a sense of wonder and awe about the space in which you're sitting at that very moment. But it's also meant to trigger in all of us a reverence and an awe for the space all around us, especially right here in the Southwest.
And for those, maybe not ghosts or presences, but those that were in that space before us.
Right.
All very important. We're loading up, in many ways, this work with a lot of kind of extraterrestrial attributes, but the piece lives up to it. That's why it won the Pulitzer Prize.
Absolutely.
This is the first indigenous composer to win the Pulitzer Prize.
And rightfully so.
So there's a lot of statement making, but at the end of the day, that's true of any concert program, of any organization, including True Concord, but the musical part of it, people are really going to love this.
Yes, there's a mystery and an awe and a compelling nature to the music that people will be talking about for some time.
And in the beautiful brochure that we have for the 20th anniversary, there is a photograph of the organ pipe cactus. It's very specifically about this. Maybe a little cutesy, not so much, but it's one of the first images that you and I selected for this beautiful brochure. Talk about the Stephen Paulus one.
Yes, so as everyone knows, I believe we've been celebrating the life and legacy of Stephen Paulus with our national competition, in which we are encouraging emerging composers to pursue their art. And I have to say, I was just delighted with our recent winner, Mary Beth Kernett, for whom this competition was life-changing. She'd gone into sort of a despairing mode because she just had some writer's block and her works weren't getting performed. And then she won this competition. And
had to write.
And has written, has been prolific ever since, and just really turned things around for her. Well, we have a new winner that we will be celebrating, a young man who's writing a piece for this concert. But what's unique about this iteration of the competition is that we also concurrently had a poetry contest. I wanted a poem for our 20th anniversary that talks about the power of music and to bring people together. You know, our name, True Concord, comes from Shakespeare's Sonnet Number 8, in which Shakespeare talks about music's ability to do this. And I wanted a modern voice, a contemporary voice, to address this as well. And so we had a national competition. We had submissions from all over the country. We had a winner. And likewise, we had submissions, nearly 100 submissions for our composers competition, and from all over the country, and we had a winner of that. And now we're bringing the two together. So the winning composer sets the text of the winning poetry contest to come up with this brand new piece to open our season. It just it feels right for an opening of the 20th
It's very
anniversary.
exciting. The 20th anniversary season for True Concord is subtitled or titled LOVE20.
Yes.
And there was a specific one of the 6-week programs that you focused on for that name. So why don't you tell us about November?
Well, actually, I want to talk about love first, if you don't mind.
Of course. Of course.
Because that is the theme of the season. And you know, we throw that word around a lot. I love this, I love that about her.
I love a Toyota.
Yeah, right. Yeah. This love, we're getting at the love of this community, this Tucson community that has catapulted us to this exciting moment of a 20th anniversary. You know, they say some organizations, you know, if they get to 10 years, they're lucky. And here we are.
Even without a pandemic.
Right, or a Great Recession.
Correct.
This community has demonstrated a level of generosity and support and commitment to what we do that has made where we are now possible and all of the successes that we've enjoyed. And so we want to celebrate that love that we have felt from Tucson and the surrounding community. We hope that the community has felt our love for them. We're expressing the love of specific composers and works that have helped us get to this point. And you're right, there is a specific piece that we will be performing by two composers we definitely love.
The latest members of the family.
That's right, our composers in residence, Tim and Jocelyn. They wrote a piece that is called This Is How You Love. It's a remarkable piece. It has an eclectic libretto from a variety of sources, including excerpts from marriage counseling sessions.
Yes.
There is
no naughty words.
Yes, no, nothing we need to.
That we're aware of.
Yes. But it is about the intimacy and the challenges and the beauty and all that is involved in relationships of a husband and wife, or whatever the relationship is. And I broaden that out to think about the relationship that I have with the artists have with each other, that we have with this community. And it's really wonderful.
Yeah, it's a very special program, and special is an overused word, but this one really is that, because it jumped out at the two of us from a visual point of view, and the brochure, and tremendous care and fondness and love that everybody has for Tim and Jocelyn, and wanting to celebrate our first composers in residence.
Right.
By doing a major work. And then there's a very obvious piece of the classical canon that could be inserted too, that everybody loves, and is just one of those evergreen things that sometimes people see it listed and think, oh, I've heard that before, and then they swoon.
Yeah. So you're talking about the Brahms Liebeslieder waltzes.
Yes.
He wrote 2 sets. This is the first set.
Made him a lot of money too.
I have no doubt
Very
about
popular,
that.
yes.
Because they are so exquisite. They're just little jewels,
Yes.
one after another.
Fabergé eggs.
Yeah. That everyone is just a pleasure and a joy to open. And it gets at that. It's kind of like Tim and Jocelyn's piece. It's the sort of the many expressions
Yeah.
of love and experiences with it.
But with very few words, in the sense that you could almost hum them, and you would know what he was getting at.
Right.
Robert Shaw did a wonderful recording of this and the Rachmaninoff Vespers almost at the same time. And one of the singers in the Brahms said, it's like a chocolate box. And he said, yeah, with no cherries, thank God, as only he could. It's because everyone, as you just said, is its own morsel of beauty, and yet they also go together.
They do.
I don't know how that happens for someone who perfected the symphony, who knew how to write a sonata, whether for violin or for piano, who knew how to write the violin concerto, who knew these big forms, not an operatic, not a lot of song, right? I mean, there are songs, and there's the alto rhapsody, and there's the requiem, but this is so intimate.
It is.
And not in an uncomfortable way, in a really happy-making way. And of course requires specific singers, but really great singers, which you always get. And I heard from some of the ensemble how much they're looking forward to doing this again.
Yeah, I am
because
too.
it's so satisfying as an artist.
It is. You mentioned the Requiem, which one of the greatest pieces ever written, and with a profundity to it. This one
for a very non-religious man. So
yes,
it's interesting. Yeah.
This has a charm.
Yeah.
And a realism to it.
Yeah.
For a man who had his own ups and downs, let's face it, with his love life.
Yeah, more downs than ups. Yes.
But someone to whom we can relate, and this music is so relatable in text and music. So truly charming pieces. I should also say that we're going to open the program with Eric Whitacre's 5 Hebrew love songs.
Also based in a love story.
Very, very much so. With his, at the time, his girlfriend, Hila Plitman. Exquisite texts and music. We performed them several years ago. It's only about 10 minutes long, but really touching music.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one all the way around. We're very much looking forward to that. The holiday season brings every year True Concord's marvelous gift to Tucson. And when I say that, I mean just as A Christmas Carol and Nutcracker and the lights at Winter Haven and what goes on at the various beautiful parks in terms of holiday celebration, very ecumenical, but also very sort of generalist in terms of celebrating a time of year, especially in a place like Tucson where it's beautiful and you can go outside and experience things as well. So for people that may not have yet experienced Lessons and Carols, why don't you share something?
Yeah, well, these are always among my favorite concerts of the year. I love Christmas. I love Christmas music. This format of Lessons and Carols is not unique in that it's been, King's College in Cambridge has been doing it for over 100 years. But it is unique here in Tucson because we're the only professional ensemble that offers this format in the milieu, wonderful milieu of all the wonderful holiday offerings in the area. What I like about it is we tell the Christmas story in word and song, and it is participatory. So we get to sing those beautiful Christmas carols that many people grew up with, and we all get to do it together. Yeah. And there's something very special about all of the voices coming together and singing these wonderful carols. The choir will perform a variety of music, as is our custom every year. I'm very excited that we'll have a brand new piece, a world premiere.
Yes, it is exciting.
By one of our composers in residence, Tim Takash. In fact, he and I are going to be talking very soon about the text and some of that music as he's just starting to write it. But
it's exciting.
We do some favorites that you'll recognize, and then we love to do the new stuff as well. And Tim's piece is sure to be a hit, as all his music is. So,
And actually, if I could just say, because we had a discussion about you selecting singers, this is a program because so many artists and so many of them come in to True Concord from out of town, but a lot of them like to stay home for the holidays too. And you've got this wonderful group of artists in Tucson mostly, correct? Who do this particular program.
yeah, well, as you know, as we've been talking about the choir and the singers, the choir is different every time we're on stage.
It is.
And what we do is we take the best available singers in Tucson and from around the country to form our choir. But again, because our singers are in such high demand,
Right.
especially around the holiday season, you know, they're being engaged as soloists.
Right.
The choir is different every time. So, but what I can say is they're good every time.
They're good every time.
And whether it's maybe the 18 that we'll have for this program is we like a smaller group and these smaller and more intimate
Well, it may
spaces.
also move throughout the sanctuary as part of the performance.
That's right. We've got candles and it's a lot of special aspects to this program that make it unique from our other
and if I could just say, it's less religious and ecclesiastical from a it's more theatrical. Actually, that's what the King's College people wanted it to be, was sort of experiencing what the story is and hearing this wonderful music, and hence the moving around.
That's right. I think it amplifies the beauty, the joy, the awe, and the mystery of the season.
Right.
As we tell the Christmas story every year. So I know for some
and not
people,
the Black Friday mystery, right? Not that one.
Not that one.
Yeah, that's mysterious in and of itself.
Yes, that is definitely a mystery. But I know for many of our attendees, this is a favorite concert.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
I hear time and time again, this is what makes Christmas and the holidays so special, and it gets their holiday season kicked off. But I should say, we are going to be doing something different this year, providing another holiday offering. This is a program that is going to be more eclectic and sort of exploring the lighter side of Christmas and the holidays in general. And it's going to be in a different setting. So whereas lessons and carols are in some of the most beautiful churches in the community, and with Candlelight, there's sort of a solemnity, while at the same time very celebratory and majestic, to those lessons and carols. Whereas we're going to let our hair down a little bit with this new holiday special that we're going to be giving on Wednesday, December 13th at the Skyline Country Club. So I think the setting is going to be festive. It's going to be lighter. It's going to the programming is going to explore a wider variety of musical traditions for the season.
And this is a performance that will begin at 4:00. It's great for families to come. We haven't really figured all out the cookies and hot chocolate part, but I'm sure we're going to get into that at some point, which is part of what these experiences is.
That's right.
It's a really important thing. The holidays, everybody can have their own experience with it. That's one of the things I love about True Concord in general, is the moving around to different venues. Just as we were talking about Voiceless Mass and the sense of space being so important, so is that true for every week that
That's right. The settings do make a difference, because we listen not just with our ears, we listen with all of our senses.
Absolutely, yeah. There's been a lot of discussion around the acoustical changes or the acoustical renovation and refurbishment at Notre Dame in Paris.
Right.
Because of the fire. And how do you reclaim when so much of the building was destroyed, and how they're going about doing it? And all that technical stuff and the computer part and all those things is really interesting. And where do you get the wood, and where do you get the steel and the lead and things like that, glass. But what the acoustician said was, part of this is the mystery of acoustics. You never know until you open it up. And God knows, we just had one of the great reclaimings of a concert hall in New York, with the disastrous Philharmonic Hall turning into the fabulous Geffen Hall, which only took far too long to make happen. And you acousticians, the ones that are honest, will always say, I've studied it, I know what I'm doing, but you never know until it actually happens. Again, that's why having actually more local singers who know these spaces already is kind of key.
It is, and you're right, space and acoustics make all the difference, because especially for the singing voice, it's feedback from the room is crucial, but it also creates an ambiance for everybody in the room that is impactful.
It's going to be great, and especially with this new performance, this new program, I think people are going to be excited about that. The next program in the season is entitled Two Important Encores. Why don't you share that with us?
Mozart and Hagen. So with the Mozart, we perform his C minor Mass. This is an important work for us. It's an important work.
That it is.
It's an important work for us because it was the first major piece that we performed back in season 3, and I'll never forget it because I was so nervous. But this is our third go around with it, and it's occupying a special place in the history of our organization. It occupies a special place in the collective psyche of classical music lovers because it was a central piece to this wonderful film that we all have enjoyed, Amadeus.
It's the Kyrie that he uses, correct? In this?
That's right. That's right. It's a haunting melody used so well in the film. And it sets the tenor for the piece. An incredible piece of music that requires very gifted soloists.
Definitely.
But it's also very complex for the choir and orchestra, but its beauty is stunning, its impact is unforgettable, and this is the right year to be doing it. Definitely. In our 20th anniversary and the 40th anniversary of Amadeus.
Of this film that actually probably created more classical music lovers than any film before or after.
Yeah.
Maybe Fantasia did something similar way back when, but this piece, because Peter Schaffer's play is so brilliant, though musicological folks love to diss it all the time about not being accurate and portraying the story wrong. What you get is a sense from the movie of who Mozart was and what a genius he was, and the comedy of it all too. It's a really brilliant film. And speaking of film and things visual, so the other piece
is Jocelyn Hagen's Notebooks of Leonardo da Vinci. Now this is another reprise for us. It was such a huge hit.
By popular demand.
By popular demand, a huge hit with our audience. It was such a big hit that after our last performance of it, we walked off the stage, and that's when I asked Jocelyn if she would consider writing another piece for us.
Her next big hit.
Yeah, which was Here I Am.
Yeah.
This piece was our first venture into projections. And the genius of Jocelyn was not just that she wrote this incredible music, but she designed and produced the visual elements to it, which were just stunning, but is a brilliant marriage of the two. The music certainly could have lived on its own, but the fact that she brought in the elements, all based on sketches and drawings of Da Vinci. She wrote it for the 500th anniversary of his birth, I believe, and so we got a lot of performances around the country. We were a co-commissioner, so we have some pride of ownership of it. But it was a celebration of Da Vinci, but this is a celebration of Jocelyn too, because she is a rising star in the compositional field, and we're fortunate to call her a composer in residence.
And for those that don't know the notebooks reference, so Leonardo had a notebook where he would do sketches as things came to him. It could be a face, it could be an arm, it could be a hand, it could be a machine, it could be any number of things. And this particular codex, as it's referred to in the art world, has been owned by wealthy people over the centuries. Most recently, in my estimation, but I could be wrong about this, Bill Gates purchased it. Arm & Hammer, who ran Occidental Petroleum, owned it. It was the Hammer Codex. It was the Gates Codex. And that toured for the 500th anniversary of Da Vinci's birth. The significance of that is that's where the visuals come from. But also, because we had such a marvelous success with our first ever portrait exhibit, using the portraits that Jocelyn commissioned for Here I Am of women, all these incredible selection of women and their writings, which serve as the libretto for Here I Am. Up in the Hotel Congress for 2 months, their most successful exhibit ever, and the most people to see it. About 4,000 people who've never heard of Concord were experiencing this. So I'm hatching an idea with the woman Carolyn King, who put that together, who actually put up the design of how those portraits would be done, with something around notebooks. So obviously we're not going to get any Leonardo's, because I think the Codex is now something like, I don't know, $150 million. But Kids love machines.
Yeah.
Kids love drawing.
Yeah.
There may be a way of creating an exhibit that would be completely unique to the portraits this past year, but something where Tim and Jocelyn, our co-composers in residence, want to get into the schools. They want to do something with kids in Tucson. This could be that opportunity. We're not there yet, but we're hoping that'll happen.
Really cool for kids, but cool for adults too.
Oh, definitely.
It's a very striking musical and visual
Well, I mean,
experience.
the drawings and creating an exhibit for the
Yeah.
kid part. But yeah, the piece is not a kid's piece necessarily, but they'll enjoy it.
Oh, they certainly will. So the two, it's like Mozart and Hagen. It's a blending of the old, the new, and two incredibly ingenious works together.
Excellent. And I know a lot of people who thought they had seen Notebooks after they witnessed Here I Am, but actually hadn't, now are looking forward to coming and seeing.
Yeah, and I can't wait to reprise it. So we talked earlier about the Bach Saint.
Brian, yeah.
And Bach St. John and Brian Giebler, our evangelist. So Bach has the big three, and I am a blessed guy to be able to say I've conducted all three of them: the B minor Mass, the St. Matthew Passion, and this will be my second time with our second time with the St. John Passion. This is the 300th anniversary of the composition of this work, so this was the year to do it. Bach is, Anthony Tomasini, I remember when he was doing this survey of composers, and there was this sort of big lead up as to who was gonna be the best composer. How do you do a contest like that and determine,
It's obviously Andrew Lloyd Webber.
But I mean, is it Beethoven, is it Mozart, is it, and he landed on Bach, and one could argue for any of these great composers, but the prolific nature and the conditions under which Bach was writing is pretty astounding. The fact that he was cranking out a cantata every week, he was in charge of music, in multiple churches for every week. I mean, and then
having kids.
And having kids, like 20 of them. And then some of his letters were great. He was always complaining about, his church choir wasn't good enough, and what can we do about it? And I'm thinking to myself, maybe write simpler music. But this music that he has left us is just incredible, and it's embodied in these big works, especially the two Passions and the Mass. And so it's a real honor to come back to this St. John Passion. These are works that are rarely performed in this part of the country, and for good reason. They're complex, they're difficult, it requires incredible artistry, and we've got the artists to do it, and an evangelist, which is a heavy lift, a guy who's really making a name for himself, Grammy-nominated singer, and so you bring all these forces together along with Bach's incredible music, and you have an unforgettable experience that is not to be missed.
Definitely. Speaking of soloists, if we could just refer to one other. So the soprano would have been a boy from the Thomaner Corps.
True.
In Leipzig. So talk about selecting someone to do that and what you're looking for, because of course, one of the things around any Baroque music, but especially Bach, is how do you perform it? What kind of instruments do you use?
Yeah.
What authenticity needs to be part of this? So describe that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, with whoever the composer is, we're always trying to get at the heart of that composer's intentions, whether it's Jocelyn Hagen, which we have the benefit of talking to, or we have Bach, and we've got a lot of scholarship around this. So we are constantly in search of that sound that would have been in Bach's ears and the music that he was aiming for. So we do that in a variety of ways, from how we approach orchestral playing, but also to the singing as well. So in terms of putting a choir together, we're looking for a choir that is crystal clear in its intonation and its tone. This is not going to be an operatic chorus, for example, because as you said, his choir was composed of men and boys.
Yeah.
Now that said, we have
all choirs were.
Yes. We've got, this is one of the beauties about true Concord singers, is we have singers who can form a chorus that congeals and comes up with a blend that is just impeccable. Someone was just telling me, they were talking about the Rachmaninoff, and 30 voices up there, but they sounded like one. And yet, Keeley can come out of the texture, and she can do what she did and employ all these other colors, or Jean. We're just blessed to have these these artists who can do the choral art and then come out and do an array of colors depending on what the music calls for. And in this case of the Bach solos, yeah, we're looking for that crystalline, just beautifully pure, soaring voices that capture the essence of what Bach intended and what the texts are conveying in this very dramatic piece.
And in the case of the soprano, what a boy would have sounded like without trying to make a 35-year-old woman sound like a boy. It's more of a almost not a cerebral, but an emotional thing as much as it is a technical thing. And that's one of the things that people often talk about with True Concord, especially after the Rachmaninoff, was where did that voice come from?
Right.
We didn't hear her in the blend
Right.
because she knows how to blend.
That's right.
Not a lot of singers who have that kind of solo capability, which almost everybody you engage to sing in the ensemble does, want to blend.
That's
because
right.
of course they were trained not to blend. They were trained to be soloists.
Yes.
And I think what True Concord does is says there's room for you to be every type of singer. And of course, I didn't realize this, a lot of the singers are also instrumentalists. They play something. And that's not unimportant. In fact, it's pretty crucial. And not just piano to sort of play for themselves and learn something. It's a fascinating group of folks that we're blessed in the United States and the world in general, and for you to be able to know who they are, to come and do a very special piece like this, a very challenging piece, and a very satisfying piece like few others.
It is, and for some it's a very religious piece, but I like to consider this also a work of art. It's like an exhibit that is coming to town that doesn't come around very often, and you don't want to miss out on it. It's a piece of art that defines Western culture in a big way, and should not be missed.
And if one thinks of St. Thomas Church in Leipzig, it is a theater, actually, as much as it is a church. It's a Lutheran church, right? So there's all of that going on politically with what religion was at the time that he was writing, continues to do in many ways. But that space is really, really fascinating. It's a place that if anybody has a chance to get to Leipzig, and I hope they do, because there's Mendelssohn's house, and there's all the Bach, and there's Wagner, and there's Goethe, and all sorts of other things, and really, 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 really good sausages, which for me, that's what travel is all about. This is one of those spaces that you will feel it when you go in.
Absolutely, and this work actually premiered at the Nikolai Kirche, which is another incredible space.
And the sort of sanctuary for the anti-communist movement.
That's right, too.
In 1989. That's where
right.
Kurt Masur, then music director of the Leipzig Gewandhaus and kind of king of music in Leipzig, gathered people together, and where they almost made him president of Germany because of what he was doing to at last remove the shackles of what Soviet Russia was.
But can you imagine Bach being in charge of the music
In two churches.
and
Two
not just
big
those
churches.
two, but others as well. So a supreme achievement of Bach, and a wonderful gift that he leaves to us that we can't wait to share with everyone.
Beautiful.
So we have
Closing week.
Yes, I'm.
The exclamation point.
I was
on
just
the
going to
20th
say, you took the
anniversary.
words right out of my
Sorry
mouth.
about that.
No, not at all. I'm thrilled with the whole season from start to finish, but this does feel like a pretty great way to finish the season.
does.
Gloria and Bernstein. So Poulenc's Gloria, an ebullient, exuberant piece of music that we have not performed yet. It's been on my to-do list.
A True Concord premiere.
Yep, it's something I've wanted to do for some time, and this feels like the year to do it. I mean, as the word suggests, Gloria. It's like it's a celebration. It's a party, and so I'm really looking forward to do it. It does call for a significant soprano solo, and we're grateful again for the Tucson Desert Song Festival to help make possible the engagement of
A debut.
and a debut with us, Nicole Cabell, Cardiff Singer of the World.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty big deal, and has been high on the list of the Tucson Desert Song Festival in terms of priority, and we get to work with her. I'm so excited about it.
A remarkable artist. And the Poulenc Gloria is one of those pieces that not every soprano is necessarily willing to tackle. It is one of those pieces, like a lot of this great French composer's music, that sounds easy and isn't.
Right.
And the challenge is, how do you make it sound, and maybe this could be applied to all kinds of music, but in the case of Poulenc, I think it really is appropriate to say that you're writing it as you're singing it. And it's why, I reference Mr. Shaw all the time, but it's why he chose Sylvia McNair for her first recording and her first solo outing, this particular piece. Nicole and Sylvia, Corinne Winters, Nadine Sierra, we're blessed with a bunch of sopranos these days. Sylvia now, of course, retired, but who championed this piece. This was a piece that Ellie Ameling always wanted to sing, but Ellie Ameling was really a leader singer, more of a song singer, not that big a voice kind of thing. But it says a lot about text. And I think that your pairings are always fascinating, always brilliant. And you've got a boy soprano who's going to join a program with a soprano. I was going to say girl soprano, but I'll get me too if I say that. So so describe that, because Chichester Psalms is one of my favorite pieces, the most often played piece in the 100th birthday celebration year for Leonard Bernstein.
This will be our third performance of it, but our first performance of the full orchestra version.
Fantastic.
So we have performed the chamber version of it, but it too is it's a celebration.
Yeah.
It has an exuberance to it that's really contagious. It does call for a boy soprano, and I'm delighted to say that we searched the world over for a boy soprano, and turns out that we had the best candidate living in my house.
Lovely, lovely.
So my son, Christian, who will be 12 and a half by then, will be singing the boy soprano solo. Bernstein said it should be a boy.
Yes.
And sometimes it's performed by a girl or a woman, but it was intended for a boy. And there's a very special quality and innocence, a purity of tone that comes with having a boy soprano.
No question. And of course, Chichester Cathedral, who commissioned the piece, had a boys choir along with the men as well. So that all is sort of act performance practice at the same time. It's a remarkably beautiful and powerful piece. It's not a surprise that so many folks wanted to do it for his centennial, because it is religious in the sort of church of Leonard Bernstein.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is its own description, and people can read books about what that actually means. You also have some other Bernstein on the same program.
Well, so we're going to do a couple of excerpts from Candide. In my opinion, one of the greatest overtures of all time.
Definitely. And still the piece that the New York Philharmonic plays. I don't know if you're aware of this. When Bernstein passed away, the Philharmonic, of course, did a concert, and they did the Candide overture with nobody on the podium.
Whoa!
And that's still how they do it.
Wow.
Because they often do it as an encore on
Wow.
tour. So the concertmaster leads it. Is it always pristine and perfect? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The point is very well established.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, no, I'm going to conduct this one.
No, it's hard. It's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard rhythmically. You were speaking about the evangelist telling the story, right? The Passion story. That 5 minutes of Candide Overture actually tells the story of a very troubled musical theater piece, right?
Yeah.
I mean, anytime you get Lillian Hellman involved, you're gonna have trouble. Steve Sondheim tried to help out and fix it. There are all these fixes with the piece. But you get all the great tunes. You get Glitter and Be Gay. You get Make Our Garden Grow. And you get, Best of All Possible Worlds within this. And you get the Dick Cavett Show, because it was his music on his TV show as well. Because it just makes you feel good.
It does. It really does. And so Gloria is the first half. Then we come back after intermission. We open the second half with Candide Overture. We do the Chichester Psalms. It's a really great connection to go from the Overture to Chichester. And then we will close with Make Our Garden Grow.
Have to.
Also a special piece for us. We have been performing this piece off and on since our very first year. There's something about that piece and a message to it about we're just going to roll up our sleeves And despite all the troubles we've had, the challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis, and we're just going to do this. And it reminds me of the very earliest days of this organization when we were known as Tucson Chamber Artists. It's like, I got a bunch of my friends together and I said, I want to do this thing. I want to launch this organization. We don't have much to work with here. We don't have a lot of money, but we got
It's
a lot.
Judy Garland and Mickey Bruno.
Okay.
Really, I've got a barn and I can make the costumes.
But we've got a lot of heart.
Yeah.
We got a lot of spirit. We've got a community that's ready to give us a shot.
They're an incredibly musical and arts-focused community, like
Yeah.
few others in the country.
And look at the garden that we have grown so far.
And will continue to grow. That's why I love that you're ending the
Yes.
20th anniversary with this particular sentiment and gorgeous music. There are a lot of people who feel pretty jaded about what an anniversary is. When I first brought up the 20th anniversary with some True Concord people, that was the response I got. Mm-hmm. It's not about everybody clapping for True Concord because it's the 20th anniversary or that 20 has any particular meaning. This is, as you started to say, as you began this whole online conversation, this is a thank you to the community. 20 years is a big deal for any arts organization. 25 will also be significant. 50 and 100, they're all important. But the importance is not to be patted on the back.
Right.
It's to say thank you, and Make Our Garden Grow is about thank you. We're closing our season, our 20th anniversary, with this piece that is so optimistic. In the face of Candide earthquakes and hurricanes and hideous things and half-hipped ladies and all that kind of thing, it's about the future.
It's celebrating what we've accomplished together, and together being the key
and we'll
word.
continue to do.
And that's what true Concord is, right? It's hearts together.
Yeah.
And so together we've created this beautiful thing. We're putting an exclamation point on a 20th anniversary, and we look to the future with great optimism, hope, and confidence.
Yeah. It's in the 300th anniversary of the St. John Passion, the 125th birthday year of Poulenc. All of these things are really about sort of, especially with the Poulenc, lodging that work and him in a certain time. It to not just the well-knowledged music lover, but you say, oh, so this is about 100 years old, so I'm going to expect a kind of sound world from that. Mm-hmm. It's almost, if I dare say it, kind of a marketing thing as well. When we think about Bach, nobody knew who Bach was in his time.
Yeah.
Telemann got the job in Leipzig.
Well,
Telemann, I'm sure some Telemann Society person is watching this and I'll get a letter, but Telemann, I mean, please.
Well, Bach was the third choice.
Absolutely, and the contract he signed, he couldn't leave Leipzig without getting permission from the mayor.
Right.
So he was captured in the city. This was pretty insulting all the way around for anybody at any time, but especially for who we knew who to be, and without whom. Without Mendelssohn, we wouldn't even know who Bach was.
That's right.
So that whole history and the fact that Tony Tomasini, who's no slouch in the brain department, and a great musicologist and a great guy and a great writer, former chief music critic at the New York Times, to single out Bach in a very different, how do you do that? But it's upon Bach's shoulders, right? It's upon Bach's shoulders that we have so many others, including Brahms, including Wagner. The whole idea of fugue.
Right,
I mean,
right,
we could go on and on and on about it. Make Our Garden Grow for me, Bernstein for me, as someone who came from a family that didn't have a lot of classical music in it, it was going to a Leonard Bernstein New York Philharmonic concert at the Concord Pavilion in California and hearing him do Mahler 1 and starting that program with what? The Candide Overture. That I will just never, ever forget. Not the podium antics, not any of that. The incredible spirit and soul of the music that he infused with everything he conducted, whether it was Beethoven or Mahler or Copland or his own work. This is just a perfect way to finish things off and to look forward to the 21st.
Indeed, and you mentioned standing on the shoulders, and we as an organization stand on the shoulders of this community.
Definitely.
And this is our way of...
They're very generous and loyal shoulders.
This is our way of expressing our gratitude and our love. And we're excited for some new changes this year, including to how we're going to be doing seating this year. Because our audience has wanted it for some time.
So we've had a sort of general admission policy. Now every seat Whether you're in a church sanctuary or in Catalina Foothills High School or wherever it might be, will be a reserved seat. So you'll know what your seats are before you come to the theater. This became particularly important for a lot of people that I've heard from, most recently with Here I Am, because Here I Am sold so many tickets. The combination of the projections, Susanna Phillips and her debut, thanks to the Desert Song Festival, and Jocelyn's world premiere that people have been waiting for because we had to postpone it a couple of times because of COVID. People didn't want to scramble for seats. So this is a very, very big deal. We are fortunate to have an amazing board of directors, but in particular Lendra Kearns, who has all the marketing background, experience, and history you could ever expect of anyone in the performing arts world, who just literally rolled up her sleeves and took this on, and has done it with great spirits and humor and joie de vivre. It's going to be a really, really special part of things. We also have some concert start time changes.
That's right, and again,
that people have been asking
based on feedback from our audience. So in Green Valley this year, we will be having 3 p.m. Performances.
And this came from a new board member who spent a lot of time working in
That's
Green Valley,
right, and talking with the folks down there.
Including Dan Scherer. Yeah.
That's right.
Our great friend
at the Green Valley News.
Yeah.
Yep. So 3 o'clock show times in Green Valley, and Saturday evenings in Tucson, 7 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah. The first person I ever worked for in the arts administration world, and he was a genius and a great musician and a really mean SOB, but he would often say to me, there are 3 things about arts administration. And I thought he was going to talk about, the UCLA MBA or the Yale MBA or the whatever it might be. He said, tickets, dinner, parking. He said, in any order you want, but that's the most important thing. And those creature comforts can sometimes be, those important aspects of going to a show can be the thing that deters someone. That's why listening to people about concert start times, especially in Green Valley, where apparently restaurants tend to close a little bit earlier, and people like to go out to eat after a performance so they can talk about that performance and savor it even more with their friends. That's the beauty of a city like New York, or Paris, or London, late night cities, where people go out and talk about whatever they just experienced, and they want that as well.
Yep. So we're happy to institute these new changes in an exciting new year of great music. So in addition to those wonderful main stage offerings, we have this other new series of close-up vocal recitals in which we get to shine a spotlight on our wonderful soloists as part of our organization. And we've got 3 really terrific performances. And this is coming off a sold-out series this year.
And the series is only, with COVID, 3 seasons or something like that?
Our third.
It's astonishing, not only because of its short life so far, but because the vocal recital has been endangered for a long time worldwide. Where I worked for a long time in Chicago, they used to do 7 vocal recitals downtown every year. 1.
That was all right, yeah.
So, is that because the recording industry is not what it used to be, and so the star-making apparatus is not there? Yeah, that's part of it. But I'm excited to be in a city where there is a Tucson Desert Song Festival, specifically focused on vocal performance, very generously and very wisely, with a great deal of musicological background and just love of the art form. And then you created this series to do a variety of different things. So tell people what's on.
Yeah. So this year we've got 3 performances, 2 of which are going to be at Hotel Congress, which was a huge hit.
Huge hit.
Our audience is still talking about. Yeah,
great sound.
It is a sound. The aesthetics of it. I mean, it's
a party.
It is, and this refurbished Century Room. It's
one of the most magnificent spaces I've seen anywhere in any city.
It is.
It just works so well.
But it creates a perfect atmosphere for these kinds of programs where people can just kind of relax, have a drink, have a little bite, and enjoy our wonderful artists. So this year we've got...
As they would have in Vienna listening to Schubert songs for the first time.
So Jocelyn, Tim, everybody knows now that they are our composers in residence, but they also have formed their own vocal duo.
Astonishing.
Yeah, just wonderfully eclectic and engaging, fun, but thought-provoking programming. And our folks have been able to experience them a couple of times, including at the exhibit at Hotel Congress this year. They have a way of just bringing you in, don't they? They're just sort of spellbinding in their performance.
They do their own arrangements. It's pop songs. It's more classical focused things. It's impeccable singing.
Yeah.
And that the combination of the timbres of their voices, it's just really, really beautiful. But they're having a wonderful time. And actually, as they sang at the opening of the Here I Am portrait exhibit, I said, do you want to come over and see the Century Room in case that's where you would want to do this? And actually, we could only get onto the tiny little stage there. And Tim turned around and goes, yes. So we're excited about having that happen again.
Yeah, good. Also at the Century Room, Erica Burkhart.
Yeah.
Really pleased to spotlight Erica because she has been around a long time. She's kind of an institution within our own institution.
And still a young person too. I mean, she's been around for a while.
She has, and she is frequently featured as a soloist on our programs. But she's going to give her own program, really delightful program. It's a celebration of women, but it's an eclectic, fun, and engaging program. The way Erica engages, and she just has this special, sparkly, down-to-earth quality about her that people just love. And when a lot of people when they think of True Concord, they think of Erica. She's just been so part of the fabric and part of our identity, but also a really great singer and artist.
I think all the time about vocal masterclasses that I've been able to attend. Bryn Terfel, Renee Fleming, Ellie Ameling, Simon Keenly-Side, John Shirley Quirk, some of the great Tom Allen, some of the great singers of our time. And what are all of those people? They're great singing actors.
Right.
Erica is definitely that. Jocelyn and Tim, definitely that. And the thing about Erica also, we should just say, because we need to thank her for this, she was our canary in the mine. Because she did the sound check for you and me in the Century Room. Because when I suggested we do something there, I was like, well, what will it sound like? And what about clinking glasses? And what about parking? And all good questions, right? And it's 100% hit. But she came, I think we both played Hagen for her or something like that. Yes. And then the other not playing would listen. She sang like 2 notes. She goes, well, I want to do a recital here. But she didn't say recital. She said, I want to do a show. And that's, the venue. People often ask Stephen Sondheim, do you write operas or do you write musical comedies? He said, well, where are you going to perform it? Well, we're going to perform it at the Metropolitan Opera. And it's an opera, Sweeney Todd. Well, we're going to perform it in a Broadway theater, and it's a musical. The venue does dictate a great deal. And as you said, people just love being there for 45 minutes earlier and having a nosh and being with their friends and, oh, hey, how you doing? And the lights are up and it's not, folded hands and
exactly. It's a relaxed atmosphere with Emily Marvish.
Emily
was a knockout.
Definitely. Oh my God.
And people just had a great time.
Yeah, they could have gone on for another hour and a half easy. And that wasn't just the cocktail song.
Right.
Who's our third?
So our third, as we mentioned before, the Cardiff Singer of the World winner, Nicole Cabell. So she'll sing the Poulenc Gloria with us and Make Our Garden Grow. And then she will give a solo program in the acoustically resplendent Holtzclaw Hall at the University of Arizona. And you've worked with Nicole.
Nicole's a very special artist on a lot of different levels. She, like Tim and Jocelyn, there's a humanity about her that is instantly portrayed. You know this about her. It has to do with her parents. It has to do with her upbringing. It has to do with her incredibly big brain. So she went to Eastman School of Music and the University of Rochester. A college professor of mine went to teach at those places. He's the one that called me 20 plus years ago and said, you've got to hear this singer. And she started to make regular appearances at the Ravinia Festival, then won the Cardiff Singer of the World Award, which has been won by Bryn Terfel and Carter Tomatula and all these amazing singers of whom Nicole is one. She had a terrific debut, I believe a debut at the Tucson Symphony about 1.5 years ago with Jose Luis conducting the exquisite soprano work by Sam Barber, the Knoxville, and then Mahler 4. So I think people are in for a real treat. Again, like Erica, like Tim and Jocelyn, like Emily, like Susanna Phillips.
Yeah, yeah.
These are people who, like Ned and Mark, who know what the recital form is actually about, which is not, I go to the hills. It's really about a show.
Yeah, it really is. And so a great lineup for our close-up vocal recital series as part of an incredible 20th anniversary. It just feels like a blockbuster of a year and a season, and can't wait to share it with everybody. We're delighted that season tickets are on sale. Now you can get your seats, your specific seats,
You know where you're going
right now, and be part of this incredible celebration that is really a celebration of all of us together
Yeah.
coming to this point.
Yeah.